Alright, so here we are in our first match. I have finished chewing, and now we can begin. Ooh, great hand. So I get to play a 2-drop. I have a creature land, and if my opponent kills my 2-drop, I can play another, and I've got this sweet Collective Defiance. So I can kill his guy and deal some damage. So pretty nice start, I think. Kind of seems just like the ideal start, to be honest. And I might be up against a... Ooh. So there's a few things I could be up against. We'll have to wait and see a little bit longer. I feel like it's pretty unlikely that my opponent has another removal spell, but we'll see. Alright, so it is the green-red energy deck. This deck is a deck that I like quite a bit, but it doesn't seem to be doing that well, at least in GP top 8s. Ho ho! So there's a few different things that I could do with this Collective Defiance, but I think using my mana efficiently is probably the best thing to do. Is that true? I could also play this Highland Lake and try to set myself up for a Wandering Fumarole attack, but the thing is, my only instant speed removal spell is this Lightning Axe, and I can't actually discard any of my lands if I want to attack with the Wandering Fumarole next turn. So I think that I'm just going to Collective Defiance this turn. And just burn my opponent and his guy. And I'm hoping that I can potentially set up something where I kill his play, end of turn, Lightning Axis, next guy, and then I can hit with this Wandering Fumarole. Oh, and it actually looks like we're against the one of the Emrakul decks. Oh, that's really good. Oh, I actually forgot to use my Thermo-Alchemist. Lol. It's actually pretty bad. I think I'm going to be without targets for this. And I'm actually hoping that my opponent casts a creature so I can hit it with this Lightning Axe and Fire Temper him. My opponent is most likely digging for an Aetherworks Marvel. So he's got an Ishkana. Oh, perfect. So let's make sure I get all the triggers this time. So I want the Thermo-Alchemist trigger to happen first, so that I can tap it again. And then Fire Temper. Now we get the most damage. Wow! So our opponent's like basically dead. Oops. Our opponent can gain some life. Could also just play Aetherworks Marvel, and that would be pretty bad. Uh-oh, 4-mana spell. It's got plenty of energy. Fortunately, because Thermo-Alchemist has Defender, even if our opponent gets an Emrakul, he can't have our Alchemist attack into him. So that's kind of cool, I guess. All right, so this means we're actually going to kill him. So World Breaker is not enough. So this is actually pretty sweet. Nice guy. We don't care about your blocker. All right, so I think that this is a matchup for Ceremonious Rejection. Seems pretty good here. Lightning Axe seems pretty bad. And Galvanic Bombardment seems pretty bad as well. Summary Dismissal seems decent. Probably these other negates. So there could be a little bit of an issue if I load up on all this counter magic and my opponent has, Ishkanas and stuff like that. But I think they're still going to be worth it. My biggest concern is just that my opponent is able to play some sort of, is able to resolve Aetherworks Marvel. As long as I can just counter the first one of those, it's probably going to be smooth sailing. Galvanic Bombardment on like a Servant of the Conduit is definitely a real thing that I can do. But I think it's better to just negate the Aetherworks Marvel that the Servant of the Conduit's trying to cast rather than going after the Servant. I actually really like Wandering Fumarole in a burn deck because it hits pretty hard and it the nature of the burn deck, just having these like reusable sources of burn, it's like really good. So I think that I want to play the Spirebluff Canal here and just burn them. And then next turn I'll be able to hold up Negate for what I assume is an Aetherworks Marvel potentially coming up. So is it time for a Marvel? All right. Everything according to plan. It would have been a bit more awkward if our opponent simply chose not to cast the Aetherworks Marvel there. So I'm pretty happy that he did. Here we have an interesting decision. We could kill our opponent's Servant Conduit, or we could discard our hand to draw 4 new cards. I think that's probably worth it, right? Because I'll be discarding 3 lands and a Negate for 4 fresh cards. Seems great. Whoa, I almost targeted him. So, not particularly better. And obviously this play is pretty bad against double Aetherworks Marvel, which my opponent has. So maybe we lose. It's fine playing around 1 Aetherworks Marvel there, but the 2 in the row seems a little excessive. But then again, I certainly wasn't in a rush, so I could have been a little bit more patient. I guess we'll just have to see what my opponent has here. Certainly an unfortunate set of circumstances, though. Oh, wow. The best thing he could find was another Aetherworks Marvel. And he's sacrificing it just to get an energy. Wow. Crazy. Well, we live to fight another day. Sick. So I could activate Wandering Fumarole and bash, but I really want to cast this Tormenting Voice because my hand's a little weak. And I'm going to cast the Stormchaser Mage first, so I can get a Prowess trigger. Man. Weak sauce. Total weak sauce. My opponent's deck certainly seems to be not quite functioning on all cylinders either, but I'm sure he's going to get up to 6 energy pretty quick. Ooh. It could be a little annoying. Man. I think that I go after the Chandra. Seems like if I don't go after the Chandra now, it's going to be a problem. It is pretty annoying that killing the Chandra gives my opponent energy, but I think that Chandra is going to net more than 1 energy if it's left on the field. Well, there's really not a whole lot my opponent can do to hurt me. Attacking with both creatures would only put me to 1. But I have very few options from here. Maybe I should have kept my my bounce spell in my deck. Well, that was a good one. I think that I want to play the Chandra, though. 2, 3, 4. Most this can deal to my opponent is 3 damage. I may escalate it next turn to discard stuff and draw stuff, but... Could also +1 for the mana and Collective Defiance. That would draw 3, or discard 2, draw 2, 3 damage to my opponent. Could also hit the Servant and hit him. So these 2 lands in my hand. My opponent would be at 9. I could potentially attack him down to 5 with the Wandering Fumarole, and then I would still need to top deck a burn spell. So if I plus this for mana, and Collective Defiance will be at 9, but I'll have the Servant able to block my Wandering Fumarole. So it goes to 9. If Emrakul doesn't kill the Chandra, Chandra can drop him to 7. So that means my draw step in these 2 lands would have to be 7 points of burn. Which is kind of tough, because basically everything that goes to my opponent's face does it in 3s. I think that I should plus kill the Servant of the Conduit. This goes to 9. Because that unlocks my Wandering Fumarole. So I'm hoping that my opponent doesn't have another creature in hand that can potentially block. Although actually the 5 will use up like all my mana. So I would have to draw an Incendiary Flow, one of which I've already used. So this actually doesn't work out particularly well either. Seemed like all of my options were bad. Honestly, the best thing that could happen to me here is that my opponent just attacks Chandra and does nothing. That would be like crazy good. And he knows my hand, so he has complete information. Oh no, that's so bad. Alright, now we're totally dead. There's another Aetherworks Marvel activation. We're getting out of here. Maybe we do want this other Unsubstantiate. No, by the time Emrakul comes down, it's like already too late. Yeah, they're just running it back. So defining factor in that last game was when I chose to use the draw discard on the first Collective Brutality. And granted, we drew pretty poorly off of it. But the reason I didn't want to sit back too much is because sometimes their deck can just like hardcast Emrakul on turn 6 or so. So trying to play like a slower game if you don't have a Summary Dismissal is not really that good of an option. This is a quite nice hand, though. Or this hand is quite nice, I should say. Especially considering we're on the play. If we can find another land, and our opponent Oh, that was actually really good too. We really want to land though. This hand is going to be great. Can't do anything about that. No land here is scary though. Like, we can sit behind these counterspells for a little bit, but we're not really getting any traction. And it's only like 1 damage a turn. Ugh. Pretty bad. And we cannot negate that, unfortunately. So, really bad. We really need a land here that comes into play untapped. So I think we're just going to go after that, just so that we can use our mana. Oh man. Well, I really want to hold up Negate and Ceremonious Rejection, but if we give our opponent another turn, there's a good chance this Tireless Tracker gets outside of burn range. So I think we're just kind of priced into taking it down now. And hope that our opponent doesn't have an Aetherworks Marvel next turn. Although my hopes are not high. Yeah. That's bad. So we could try to hope that we can just negate his next thing. We could also just play the Thermo-Alchemist and hope that he whiffs. I think we just need to put as much pressure on as possible. We can't actually control our opponent's plays. We don't have access to the mana or the well-rounded counterspells that we really need. So we just kind of have to pray here. Yeah, and if I'd held up Negate, hoping that I could counter his spell to get energy, that plan would have been blown up by Servant of the Conduit. So the good news is with our mana situation, our opponent can't actually cast any spells. So that's kind of a silver lining. If we draw the land here, I'm going to be pissed. Ugh, comical. Well, we drew pretty bad. This deck needs Brainstorm. That's what it needs. Brainstorm would be sick. Brainstorm is a goulet. Oh yeah. And there goes my Stormchaser. Right on time. All right. So there's basically no way we could win. Opponent's down to 2 cards. This Fevered Visions doesn't seem like a particularly good idea. Yeah, there's just no way. We can deal 4 damage with Thermo-Alchemist this turn, 4 damage the next turn. Our opponent's at 6, and we're going to be just completely dead. So, yep, we're done with this one. On to the next one.